welcome. I hope you enjoyed the different format to the meeting.
Yay!
And,
Food.
Okay. And again, as I said before, wash your hands before you handle the cameras. After the business part of the meeting is over, we'll turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies, Al Holme, and people will talk about their favorite cameras briefly, and then we have the whole round table. And more food.
Door fries.
Oh, is there a door fry? Mr. President, I move that additional nominations be closed.
Second. The nomination has been made and seconded that the nominations be closed. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Thank you. The ayes have it. I declare the nominations closed.
Mr. President, I move that the Secretary be empowered to cast one vote for the slate of officers and board members as listed on the ballot.
Okay. That's all right.
I second the motion.
Thank you. We have heard the motion before the meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The President recognizes the Secretary of the Society.
Mr. President, in accordance with the motion just passed, I cast one vote for the officers the board has nominated.
Second motion.
Mr. Secretary, your vote is accepted. The election has now been completed.
Onward the king.
Onward.
Who's the king now?
That's right. We pass the gavel on to John Dockery. And again, this is originally owned by Richard O'Brien, President Toastmaster of the Quincy Toastmasters in 1949.
Hey, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You'll tell me later where the trigger is.
I'm not dead yet. Your trip
Maybe
is
it's
starting in
smoking.
January. You stole my meeting.
I have a spare jacket.
A couple of weeks ago, and I bought a little box lot of knickknacks that I can resell at the antique shop I'm set up in. When it came to my lap, the guy that sits next to me at the auction reached in and pulled out the dog tags, and he looked at me and he said, "Spell your maiden name." So I did. Many of you have known me for years, and I said Steiner. They were my dad's dog tags. His service number. The guy that had put this in the auction, this box lot, was from Methuen, Mass. How they got there, my dad sold the house 3 years ago. He said he might have inadvertently, put them in something he didn't know. And the guy that consigned them from Methuen, Mass, and the auction was held in Hooksett, New Hampshire, bought them at a flea market that's held twice a year in Andover, Mass. So now they've come home.
Where's the cigars?
I teach at Belmont Hill School in Belmont, Mass. It's an anachronism. It's a big all guys 7th grade to 12th grade prep school, and it's on lots of land, and it's right in Belmont, right off Route 2. The reason I bring all this up is that we have a classic old-fashioned darkroom that we use every day. 12 enlargers, big sinks, lots of room, and it's connected with 2 big classrooms and a gallery. And so 2 things. First, there is a gallery there. Repeat the word gallery. And I've been the director there for 22 years. Now, I'm retiring this year, but I'm trying to set up for next year. So first, if people are interested in a show, contact me. I'm in the book, in the membership book.
This way, and go this way, this way. Okay, why don't we start down here? Who's down here wants to go first? Okay.
I'll go first. Billy grab the camera. So I'm over there. I'm Dave Wilson from Billerica, Mass. And my favorite camera is something I made myself, sort of. I'm not going to belabor this too long because I think a lot of the members already heard me speak. So I'll just say I got 2 Nikon N2000s synchronized in the homemade frame, and it lets me shoot stereo. And it's slightly hyper stereo. My base is 120 millimeters. And this has now been in operation for about 3 years. It's pretty reliable. I can go out and shoot with it every day. There's a shoot button, the zoom lenses are zoomed by a little knob here, and the stainless steel cables. There's a button on the back to turn on the light meter, which is
Several years ago, PHSNE had a crappy camera competition. I'd like to tell you about my lousy lens competition. These are two lenses that I pretty much carry with me all the time, and it's amazing how much I use them. And I'd like to tell you about them. Everybody in the room has seen a Diana camera. I don't have one anymore because every time I pick one up for $1 or $2 at a yard sale, I end up selling it for 25 or 30 at a camera show. If you're dumb enough to give me $30 for a Diana, I'm dumb enough to take the money. They're awful. They scratch, but the absolute worst part is the lens. You know, basically stamped out by dwarves with pliers. They flare. They have chromatic aberrations like crazy. They're just lousy lenses, but that's why people buy them for the AHT, the people at Lomography, who gave us the wonderful Lomo cameras, another fine piece of Russian engineering.
Please, I'm talking about that later.
I bet you are. Came up with the newest idiom of Diana camera. It's called the Diana Plus. It comes with interchangeable lenses.
If I go to a party, this is the 6-pack I would bring, all right? So I also attended Photo History out in Rochester and went to the trade show. And when I saw this on a table, I got really excited because I have the individual camera. I have a lot of canned cameras in my collection because, you know, I collect colored cameras, toy novelties, sub-miniatures. But when I saw this, I decided this must have been the original marketing strategy to go to stores and sell it in a 6-pack because they are Budweiser cans and they're all sealed and they came with the instructions. So I had to buy it. And Bob Kalinsky, I think that's his name, he used to set up at our show years ago. Do you remember Bob from Ohio? Bob Kalinsky, I think is his name. But anyway, so he had it on his table for $150 and I went by and said, oh, you probably have the only thing I really like. So he said, well, for you it's $125. And I said, well, for me I'd rather it be $100.
Hotel is the Prime Minister, I'm sorry, immediate past President of Disney. And shifting gears completely, I bought this Zeiss Contaflex Super BC late last spring and used it through the summer. The Contaflex SLR series were leaf shutter single lens reflexes, and it being Zeiss, they were made to a very, very high quality standard and also to a very, very high degree of complexity. So, a couple of things. Most of the ones that you find out there don't work anymore because they've gummed up. And this camera proved to be one of the best condition I've ever seen. And there's another thing too, with that as Zeiss went into the 60s, they decided to introduce some exposure automation, basically making it a mechanical shutter priority, and the aperture would close down.
My God. Is this a Canon from a ship? It is. I'm Jim Chassie from Haverhill, and I brought along 2 cameras, but they're the same camera. That's a home portrait with a lens on it. This is the original home portrait made by Graflex, Clegg Graflex. It's a home portrait camera, so it has an 8-inch lens on it for portrait work. And it only goes to a 500th of a second. But sports photographers wanted something, so Graflex made this. This goes to 1,000th of a second. And then there's this company, I forget what the guy's name is, Fresinelli out of New York. And he would make this from the Graflex. So it's a combination made up for sports photography where this one's set up for baseball, where you can shift it to the base you're going to be taking a picture at. So pretty big and mighty heavy, but you shift it to the base where you think the play is going to be. So it's got a 28-inch lens on it, so it reaches out, and it's very, very heavy. I can't imagine photographers, lugging these around anymore than they had to, so.
I got a Brownfield camera, and just prior to my leaving, I'm a Korean War veteran, and I wanted to take
World War
something. No. Civil War too. I wanted to take something with me that had some potential as a camera, but yet would fit into the fuel jacket pocket. And I went down to Bronfield, and I prowled around and prowled around and prowled around, and finally, on good advice, I was sold this little Baldax, and it has a 2.8 Schneider lens in it, and it had the Prontor SP shutter. And they also sold me a very small, very compact electronic flash that used 2 little pen-light batteries. God knows where that went. But how this happened to end up being my favorite camera, not only did it travel with me for up, down, in and out, snow, mud, mud, snow, snow, mud, more mud and snow, but
Didn't have far to come today. But my favorite camera is this ultra-large format 10 by 12 inch antique from about 1900, which I got from Bombay, India. And I used it to take glass plates, hand pour emulsion in my basement darkroom, and then expose them for about 12 seconds at f64. And I have some examples here of pictures of it just taking around town, historical buildings and so forth, which I exhibit in the library here. So it's been fun. Been pretty much self-taught, trying to figure out how to do this, and get some interesting effects, especially with skies and other things.
Where was the camera made?
It was made by Matthew Swery Camera Works out of Bombay, India.
Oh, it's an Indian-made
Right,
camera. And
right.
What kind of lens and shutter do you have?
It's got a Schneider Kreuzneck 300/500 millimeter, and that didn't come with the camera. I had to get it here and photographed it about 2 years ago. So,
photograph it.
yeah.
Very nice. Let's hear it, a photograph. John, take them out.
A lot of times we like a camera for a story. And this one came to me in the beginning. I started getting interested in photography because my father-in-law had been taking pictures with old self-casing drop front cameras from his childhood. His grandfather had bought a camera in 1902. And so my father-in-law gave that one to me, and I got excited. I started taking larger format stuff. And then the next time after I had taken his picture with it, he expected me to fix it up and put it on a shelf, and instead I fixed it up and took his picture with it. Next time I came down, he handed me this one. His brother had been a soldier in World War II, had gone into North Africa, fought his way across North Africa, up into Italy, up through Italy, and all the way into Germany, and the taking of Berlin. And in the last push, taking of Berlin, in a bombed out building, he'd stolen this. I don't think they called it stealing. Yeah, the GIs didn't call it stealing, but he came home with his camera, liberating it, right?
Okay. Back in the 70s, I showed you people a 2 1/4, 3 1/4 anniversary model graphic, which I used a lot. And then not too long ago, I showed you a roller cord, which I used a great deal. But now I'm going to show you from the roller cord to another kind of a camera, and then a final camera that right now is fixing me up. For the roller cord had a couple limitations. One is 12 exposures. Secondly, a fixed focal length lens, and you really couldn't do anything about adding anything to it to change the focal length. So about that time in life here, there was a company called Norita in Japan who produced a camera that had some attributes to it. But at that time, it was called Norita, and it wasn't a very reliable camera, but they did have some value to it. And in the course of the machinations of General Precision, or whoever it was, the Graflex company did a lot of changing around. And so while Jim has Graflex cameras, he doesn't have this Graflex camera. No. Not at all. And why do you say Graflex? Right here. Graflex Norita.
I put them in my house. I put them on a shelf. The kids come over. They're all user-friendly. They love them. They think they're cute. My wife likes to invite people down to see them, among other things. And that concludes my story.
standing in front of the British Museum. And right across from that was a little tiny mall. One had a store, I guess, that got famous carrying rare cameras and so on. And there was a bookstore, a used bookstore that just opened. And I saw this. It's an album from July 33 to April 34 by a British flying officer stationed in Egypt. In particular, anyone who's into aircraft flying, everything, there are crashes, plane to plane, and there are a variety of images in Cairo and Cairo vicinity, and one of the famous pyramids, pronounced Cheops, I think, it's supposed to be one of these things. I couldn't resist it. It's definitely, I mean, I collect books, photo books a lot, but this is my favorite item.
Great, there you go.
By 10 camera.
Yeah.
I got in one of the groups, I think like for my group, it's a guy that kind of leader with this camera. There is two major Chinese now in the market for this type of large format camera. One is Shenghao, I think it's called, and the other is Chamonix. I prefer the finish of the Chamonix. And this camera, to let it story short, it's very light. Probably the cost is close to 2 grand, nothing. And you can find the holders, it's in eBay too, 4x10. I probably pay like, I don't know, like maybe less than $50 each. I've got 4 or 5. You can use 8x10 film cut in half, or this is what I bring the story here. This is a typical 9.5 roll of film using for aerial cameras. Just a slide, make a cutter, dark room, cut it, and give you a couple. Somebody want to see?
Panoramic photography. And I think last year at about this time I brought in my Alpha Roto, which weighed about 18 pounds and takes up a huge case. But I do have 2 others that I find that are also my favorites. And this little one in my right hand is called a round shot. And it uses 35mm film. And it's capable of taking either 90, 180, 270, or 360-degree images. And in fact, at 360 degrees, you get about a 9-inch piece of film. So it gets 6 exposures to a roll of 36 exposure film. My friend Armando was very helpful and built a device so that electronically I could control the rotation. So rather than sit there with a cable release and hoping that the thing makes a full 360.
4 of them right now. And this is an early one in the 64 number series. This has interchangeable prisms, it has interchangeable lenses, of which I have several. It's also the shutter on it, and the internals are almost identical to the Nikon SP rangefinder camera, which I have recently, a couple of years ago, acquired. And it's the same shutter, the only difference is the length of the body is extended so that to accommodate the mirror box. So I happened to pick this up over the summer before last at a yard sale, a Nikon F with a 1.2 on it. Rather quick lens, fast lens. And I have accumulated a lot of other lenses. I didn't bring all of them with me, but as a sampling, I have a 24, 2.8, 2.8, 24, a very old 3.5, 28, an F2 35, which I picked up at the last show. I paid $1 a millimeter for it.
It was the other formal part of the day, so there's more food, more cameras. And see you in January, where our speaker is going to be Al Homey on
Soviet cameras.
Soviet cameras, everything you wanted to know.
Bring your
Soviet camera if you want to know too.